Hey Trent, how you doing, man?
Good, good.
Cheers to you. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, we get to drink.
You got off the plane?
I did. Yeah, that was a nice long trip. I could have driven quicker, but by the time 9 hour wait in Calgary, but
You're coming from Abbotsford, or where were you
uh,
coming from?
yeah, I fly out of Abbotsford.
Yeah.
So,
What happens? Do you drive trucks there and then leave them there, or how does that work?
trucking's in such a bind right now. There is, like you always hear, there's a driver shortage. It's become acute. I had a meeting with a fellow here in Saskatoon who's runs quite a large trucking company. You've heard of it. And he was saying, come January, this is back in August, he told me this. He said, come January, he said, this industry is going to be crippled.
Really?
And I said, why is that? And he's actually said it would have happened over the summer, last summer, with the summer rush, but COVID slowed that down.
Changed everything, the logistics of everything delayed everything and stuff. Yeah.
All it did was delay it.
Yeah.
Okay. And he said there's nobody left. I asked him, I said, like, why is that? He said, there's nobody left. And this guy hires hundreds of drivers, okay? Or has hundreds of drivers working for him. One thing that's happening, and more than one industry is doing this, is bigger companies are buying out smaller companies, not to get their customers, but to get their drivers. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, that's the opposite. Well, shit, it's drivers are in demand, supply and demand, man. If they're in demand, that's what you're trying to do. That's where you're going to invest your money in, right? So,
yeah. And it's pretty much impossible to get into the industry as a driver.
Yeah.
No one will hire you with less than 2 years experience. Right. I have another friend who has a fuel hauling company, and he cannot hire a driver. He cannot get insurance.
Right.
Like a minimum of 2 years hauling fluids, tanks, dangerous goods. Well, where do you get that experience if nobody gives you a job, right?
Yeah, it's gonna come. Well, it's gonna bite us in the ass here right now. That's what's gonna happen, hey?
Well, a couple of years ago, about a year and a half ago, Kim Wiley from Humboldt, him and I put together a letter that we sent out to a lot of MPs and a lot of MLAs, laying out. It was a very basic structure of what we thought should be to make trucking a trade, so that there is a pathway. You come in as an
right,
and you work your way up, and you get to the point that then you're going to have a supply of drivers. Because I'm 52, all right. I'm not in this much longer.
Yeah.
Some of the best drivers out there right now are well into their 60s. I am still one of the youngest guys in this industry at 52 years old. So
yeah, that's a good point. All those drivers that I know for our company, like they're mid 50s at
or
least.
older.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And they're great guys, by the way. Those are the guys that trained me, and I loved it. Yeah.
That's a good point, though. Yeah.
So it's going to be a crunch. I'm seeing a pretty busy last few years of trucking for me, but I mean, I'm not going to do it forever, of course. So,
okay. Yeah. So Trent, this is Trent Lalonde, a friend of mine. Do you remember when we met, Trent?
Well, politics. What else? I mean,
do you know where we met? I remember this. I remember very clearly.
At Miles Heights.
Miles Heights House. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
We're part of the I forget what Massey Place, I think it was, Constituency Association for the SAS Party. We were going to take over the world. We had a good group of guys in there, but they got rid of all of us, and then we actually won the seat back from the NDP. So they got rid of me. That wasn't very good. But that's where we met, though, hey? And just sort of a shared passion. Didn't live too far. Still don't live too far from me, I guess. And Miles is living on the other side of town now. Mr. West Side, hey? Mr. West Side.
Are you serious?
Lives on the east side of town.
Is he out at Chittick all the time now, or what? He's at Chittick Lake quite a bit.
Yeah, well, he was actually down in Arizona quite a bit, too, after he retired. And then, sold the place, though, because they weren't going down there very much. So they sold it probably at a good time because it's before COVID. I think they were missing a lot of their grandkids playing hockey. That was a big part of it, because they have some pretty darn good hockey players for grandkids, and Miles lives for the hockey. And then his boys, his one boy lived right like 2 blocks away from me, and then the other guy lived on the other side of Hampton, and they both moved out of the neighborhood as well too. So they moved to the east side. Disappointing, man. Disappointed. Got to represent. So yeah. So anyways, that's how we got to know each other. You're a political aficionado. That's a good way to describe you. I think
an addiction.
It's very much an addiction.
Yeah. I was just looking at pictures of my grandfather a little while ago. There were 16 kids in that family, 12 boys, and they were all political. And everybody a different party, right? Like my great uncle Vic was actually Ellen Blakeney's campaign manager, and my grandfather campaigned for Diefenbaker, New Diefenbaker, and New Stanfield, and in with that crowd, and there are liberals in that crowd also. Vic though came around; he was campaigning for Morris Vellicott at the end. So, yeah,
that's a hell of a shift.
There is hope. There is always hope that they will come around. Yeah.
My grandpa was a diehard liberal. I know that. My mom's dad, he was hardcore. You wouldn't believe that. And,
in Saskatchewan, you know what? You read the history, and you don't hear me bashing. I mean, I don't have much use for the current Liberal government, but past Liberal governments, I can't bash them all that hard because, I mean, they're not without their mistakes. There is an arrogance, and as Sir John A. Macdonald said, not every Liberal is a horse thief, but every horse thief is a Liberal. So, but no, they did good things. I did. I really.
Well, they ruled the province for a long time, for sure, and
they built this province. Yep.
Yeah, and well, every government has their faults, anyways. Let's not kid ourselves. So, but that's kind of your background. We're not getting into politics here, though. Trent, I know you're very aware of this, and told my listeners that we're not pushing any kind of viewpoints, but it is relative to how we know each other and how we engage too, because we're both about big loudmouths who know everything. And
I'm like your mini me. I'm the smaller version there.
You're bigger than me in a lot of ways too. Your mainstay on the Gormley show, at least you were, anyways. I don't listen to the radio very much anymore. I've turned off the news. I think we connected today. Yeah, I stopped my subscription years ago for the local paper. Mm-hmm. I don't trust what I hear anymore. I don't. Everyone, because people are taking sides. So I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to understand? Why should I trust anybody what's going on in the newspaper? So.
What I found when you start engaging with people, and particularly here in Saskatchewan, now things have been really charged lately with what's going on in the States, and we won't get into that. But when you sit down and you actually talk to somebody who's in a different party, when you talk about an issue, now you don't come at it from a party point of view, you're going to find out you actually get along. Yeah. And what I've learned is people who get involved with politics, I have respect for all of them. It's a hard game. Politicians work extremely hard. There's a reason I don't run. There's a reason you don't run, because you see how much work is involved. And
I'm more worried about my family, to be honest. I don't want to become targets. So, but it's a hell of a lot of work, and actually a lot of local politicians in this province, like the vast majority of the guys up through the provincial level, I have nothing but respect for. For most of them, to be honest.
Yeah, I do. I don't. They get a little too charged with the rhetoric, but I'm guilty of that too.
Me too.
But they care, and they want to get things moved forward. So, and anyways, my point is everybody wants to make the world better. We just disagree upon how to do it. And when I look at it that way, it's easy to get along with your political opponents. Right?
Yeah, and for me, I'm like, nobody asked me to make the world better, so I'm just gonna make myself better instead. That's my new mantra.
That, and that's, well, myself, of course, but also my thing now is because, I'm getting, as I keep saying my age, I'm 52 and I'm aware of the clock ticking, right? And I want to leave the trucking industry better than I found it. And
that's a great goal for you.
Yeah,
actually.
There's a lot of people behind it. It's not just me. I'm talking to guys all over North America, and we're working on it.
Yeah, you're from Shell Lake, right? Is that where you're born and raised, I guess? Or
we moved around a lot. My dad owned several businesses, but yeah, I would say Shell Lake primarily. Yeah.
So your home as much as any place is, eh?
Yeah, Saskatoon and Shell Lake. Yeah, born.
Oh yeah, I think you mentioned before in Saskatoon as well too.
So
yeah, a lot of Lalondes in that area there too, and like obviously we have our lake up there, and now you guys join us at our lake. We're not gonna say the name of it because it's too nice, and
you sound like my wife. She doesn't want anybody to know about it.
everybody up there is like that. Everybody says that. I think I mentioned the lake on this podcast before, but I'm not supposed to say the name. And actually, a buddy of mine, he was looking for. I had lunch with him just before Christmas, and he's been looking for some property to develop. And he mentioned that lake. He said, "Yeah, but you got a cabin up there?" Said, yeah. My wife's mom has a cabin up there we're able to use, and but we're not supposed to tell anybody about it. It's like everyone says that. So you got a place on there though, which is pretty nice across the lake from us too. So you got built a new place.
Right across, yeah.
So that was kind of nice. We finally got to. Was it last year or the year before? We finally got together for a beer. We kept talking about it. So go for a little ride with.
We went for a boat ride.
Yeah,
we'll have to do beer this year for sure. Well, if COVID ever ends.
I think we're gonna do it. I think I'm done by the summer. It's gonna tail off in the summer anyways because the UV rays are. They kill it all.
You know, back in June, I'd ended one job and because of COVID, and I said to my wife, I said, you know what, I may never get this chance again. So me and another friend, we got on our bikes and we rode out to Vancouver Island, and I was amazed. You get out, we got to BC, and it's like COVID never happened back. I mean, that was June of last year.
Really?
Yeah, I'm out there all the time now.
Yeah.
But it's a little different now, but nowhere near the attitude that it is here. Nowhere near.
Like in terms of like nobody gives.
Nobody was wearing a mask. There were a few rules, like you had to get your food and go outside to eat. But
that's
even
interesting.
You get on the ferry and you got to wear a mask. But then it was when you first got on, you wore a mask, and then you took it off and you walked around, like everybody else. It was very different.
That is, well, I wonder if it's changed now.
Well, I'm out there. I just came from there.
And it seems the same to you?
It's
like you're on the highways and stuff and you're not on the ferries and yada yada, but
you're not feeling the tension, like
yeah,
here,
it's so tense here.
And people are, they're reporting their neighbors and the stuff happening in Calgary, that poor kid playing hockey. That kid's never going to get over that. I mean, when you do something like that to a person, they remember it the rest of their lives.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's just tearing us apart here. That's the whole thing. I'm just complying, but I'm like, I'm not liking it. So I don't know how well it's been done, and nobody knows. They say, well, it helps. Well, how much? How much does it help? Give me a number, science person.
Well,
they don't know. It's a hypothesis. Maybe there's some validity behind the hypothesis. I can accept that, but don't tell me it's science because we don't know.
I would agree with you because why are there no cases of the flu? And there aren't. People aren't getting the flu or the cold. So obviously social distancing is working. It's having an effect.
Yeah.
But we still have COVID numbers.
I'm almost convinced now that this is an engineered virus that escaped the Wuhan lab or something like that. I'm right there. That's where I'm at right now. I'm not saying it was deliberate. I'm saying it was, but the virus is developed for some sort of research or biological warfare purposes or something like that in this lab and escaped because we've never seen anything like this before. Like there's been plagues before, but like the Spanish flu, that's just a variant of the flu, right? And the flu's always been around. So we know that kind of stuff happened. The plagues have happened before, but a cold like this that really affects you like this, like, I don't know, or have we had it before and just didn't know how to test for it? I don't know.
Have you Googled the list of pandemics we've had? What was it?
Yeah.
The Hong Kong flu, was that in 57, 58? And there was a Hong Kong and the Asian flu. One was 68, 69. They had Woodstock. Millions of people died. You know, there were all, and that's just what we know of.
Yeah.
And there was no big hullabaloo about it. I had H1N1. That was a nasty one. I was down for 5 days.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, it was bad.
God.
It was really bad. And the hot and the cold, which I found out later, a friend of mine told me, oh yeah, well, that was the blood from your organs gathering around your heart and leaving your extremities. And I'm like, because it's preparing you to die. I'm, oh my God.
Right.
Thanks for letting me know that. But I mean, it was years later I heard that. But anyways,
Yeah.
so we've had these pandemics. We've always had them.
Yeah.
The way we react, I don't like that we're turning on each other. I really don't.
It's really bad.
If you want to, and I'm not one to back away from a scrap, but when you're reporting your neighbor, and I hear people I think are nice people, and I still believe they're nice people, but they're on social media and they're going, "You're not wearing a mask. You're killing my grandma." Well, why is your grandma out where she's exposed to jackasses that can kill her? Like,
yeah,
we know it's a pandemic, so you change your lifestyle.
Yeah, it's easy enough for me. I just stay at home. I go to the gym. Luckily, the gyms are open, and then I coach hockey. So those are the things I do to get outside. That's it.
Yeah,
I don't care if I ever go to Walmart again. To be honest, I haven't been there since before the pandemic, and I'm happy not to go. I think I picked up groceries there. We just do all delivery stuff, getting deliveries and stuff like that. But but the human nature is such a funny thing too, and it's really starting to come out. And I think I mentioned before, but I kind of like in the pandemic in the sense that I get to know who when the fascists or the communists take over, I know who's going to rat me out. And people like to think that they're not going to be the rats during a fascist takeover or communist takeover. But
okay, now I am making a conscious effort not to get into politics.
Well,
so you brought up fascism, so we're going to change the subject. And okay. I would normally, and I'm doing this for your own good because you didn't want this to become politics. If I go another 2 minutes, you won't stop me. And my wife will be calling your wife saying, "Hi, my name is Trent Lalonde. What did your husband do?" He's so up.
It's my opinion, and I'm just sick of it all. And maybe I'm wrong, and I admit that I'm wrong. But I'm not killing anybody because I'm wearing a mask and I'm doing what I'm told. So whatever.
Yeah.
So, anyways, but I am talking to people.
You know what I want to talk about?
At a socially safe distance. Yeah, I want to know what you want to talk about. Talk to me.
I want to talk about trucking. That's the whole reason I want to come on here.
Yes.
Because I want to make trucking better. I am going to damn well leave that industry better than I found it.
You made notes tonight.
I make notes because I do my rant from the road. I'm also working with some friends of mine. One guy is the American Trucker on Twitter. Another friend of mine, he keeps getting kicked off Twitter, Gordo. Gordo I met on the... Gordo, I always make jokes about hippies, as you know. I met on the ice roads in 2006.
Oh, wow.
And Gordo was like 27 at the time. Love this guy. Dreadlocks down to his ass.
Wow.
Hardcore hippie. Actually, a few years after I'd met him, meets his wife at Burning Man because he went every year.
Because of course, yeah.
Married her. She was a school teacher in Brooklyn. They live in Ithaca, New York today, of all places. Okay.
Hippie haven.
You know what? He's probably one of the finest people you will ever know. I am glad I know him. I'm glad I've gotten to know him. And
it's awesome.
Yeah, he's, I don't get to see him enough, but I consider him one of my dearest friends, and I can't, character-wise, you can't get a better person. But Gord is working on trucking also.
Okay, yeah.
He has been all over the world. Road trains in Australia, logging in New Zealand. There's nothing he hasn't done. He drove the merchandise van for Kiss at one time, or truck for Kiss.
Right.
He's friends with, which got him to be friends with Ted Nugent and spent a week at Ted's place in Michigan. He's got all kinds of stories. But we want to make this better. And Gord has done a number of interviews on podcasts and different media forums. I'm pushing him to write a book, but we want to make this industry, we want to make it a trade. It is a trade. If you look at any trucking company, they want you to have a minimum of 2 years experience or better.
Yeah.
2 years of experience is 6,000 hours of driving. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
You know how long it takes to get a trade, to become a journeyman in a trade? 6,000 hours.
Oh, okay.
So they're already recognizing it as a trade, but they don't want to recognize it as a trade because then everything changes, right?
Yeah.
Now you got to start paying it as a trade. And now you're not getting guys for peanuts. But anyways, we want to get that type of certification. We want to get that training. So we're not going to see the trucks are launching into people like missiles, for crying out loud. It happened twice in 2 weeks at Oyen, Alberta. Okay.
Around that main highway there on Highway
7
there, hey? Yeah.
Is it not? It changes right at the border, 7 and 9. I think it's 9 in Alberta.
It's not in Alberta and has that main intersection right by the co-op that you start at. And it always scares the hell out of me whenever I stop at that co-op when I go to Calgary. And because you're looking both ways, and boy, like it can come pretty darn quick. There's a little bit better now because they have those turning lanes in and out of that co-op, but still that intersection's right there. And you're kind of coming over the hill from the east and you're trucking it pretty good. And yeah, that's and it's a busy, it can be a very busy section, especially in the summertime. So
I don't think it happened at that intersection where both those accidents happened.
Oh, really?
The construction zone.
Ah.
And what happened, the vehicles were parked and the guys come along and they plowed into, you're on the prairie there. The big joke on the prairies, you can watch your dog run away for 3 days.
Not there, though.
It's a long, straight stretch. There was no excuse for that, but it's happening.
Yeah.
And it's increasing. I do my own YouTube thing, Rants from the Road, about trucking issues, about political issues. And you're welcome to go there and listen to me talk politics. But anyways, I started researching it, and I couldn't believe how many like you type in fiery crash Ontario and it's horrific. And this is happening all the time. Of course, we have the horrible accident of Humboldt Broncos, and you had Lori Thomas on here, and it was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
My wife knows her husband. My wife is from Nick.
Scott. Yeah, right. From Macon. Yeah.
I believe they grew up together, roughly the same age, played sports together.
Yeah, and that accident had the driver, but the company that hired him, like that guy's gonna be at fault. But you also mentioned, was it you that was mentioning though, not just the guy that hired him, not just the trucking company, but the whoever contracted them should also be held to some sort of account as well. So it's like whoever they're delivering for.
Well, I'm approaching this from a lot of different angles to make it a trade. But what you run into when I talk to guys, it's kind of tough. I started out driving truck, and that's not tough, but 28 years ago, and guys I started with, one fellow I know, great guy, good friend, and he was dispatching. I think they had 20 trucks. I think they have 1,000 today, or 500 or 1,000, and they've gone way up here. And I'm still driving my own truck. But anyways, when you talk to these guys and you get to know them, they want to do this. They want to do the training. That training used to exist. There used to be programs where you take a junior driver, a guy without any experience, fresh out of driving school. You put him in with an experienced driver, and they would ride together for like 6 months. And when that guy was done, the junior driver, he had an idea of what was going on. But now there's an expense there. You have to pay the experienced driver more than he would regularly make because he is training.
Yeah.
You're training, so you're not getting as much production out of the truck, and you have to pay the junior driver. Okay.
Yeah, and a limited rate, but still you're paying him. So you're basically paying.
And when he's all done, there's nothing stopping him from quitting and going somewhere else, right? So.
But that's like any trade, though, right? So you can apprentice anybody if you're a pipe fitter or a mechanic or mechanics, but I was thinking a plumber or whatever, right? The risk is always there.
But we're in an industry where the shipper, if a shipper puts, they're looking They really don't know one truck from another. They don't know one driver from the other. They're always going to take the cheapest rate, and I don't blame them. They're running a business,
Yeah.
and if they're allowed to do that, they are always going to take the cheapest rate.
Yeah.
It's just good business sense, right?
Pressure's
So,
on. Yeah.
bingo, they want to hit their bonus band, right? Or their whatever. Cheaper is better when you're in that situation. So you can't charge more for your service to provide training and safety, because safety takes time and time costs money, right?
Unless the market's willing to pay for it.
So how do you make the market pay for it? And
That's right. Yeah, go ahead.
I was on doing what I do now. I tend to work directly. I found you work directly for the general, for the biggest contractor. You'll get paid more. And I go on to a lot of different gas sites and oil company sites and that kind of stuff. And you go through all these trainings, orientations, they call them. And the one thing they pound through your head at every place you go to is, who's responsible for safety? And the answer is always the same: everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone is responsible. And I got thinking, we don't make everyone responsible, do we? If XYZ Corporation is shipping widgets and they put it on they take the cheapest rate, and that truck ends up in a fiery crash and kills a bunch of people, you know what? XYZ Corporation makes more money because they sell more widgets to replace the ones who end up in the fiery crash. We don't allow that in any other industry, Rob. My dad he had hotels and bars for, I guess, 25 years, 26 years. And he was responsible for every single patron that went through there. If they got drunk and got in an accident, my father could have been sued.
Yeah, and that especially came the case after that Texas tea incident, right, in Saskatoon. That was a landmark case where everyone became suddenly liable. The bar owner, the waitress, there's a guy who got really, really drunk and he passed away. Mm-hmm. Where I'm not sure if it was alcohol poisoning, was definitely a contributing factor to the event. Mm-hmm. And so now that was because I took training shortly after that. I used to go to the Texas tea.
I love that bar.
I was one of the last sort of cohort that was able to make it there, because it's probably 19 or 20 when that incident occurred. So, and and I was there before I was 19. I guarantee you that. But I remember how it used to be. You just drank till you fell over, mm-hmm. basically. And then I got training later on, because I used to serve drinks at university parties and stuff. And so I got training, and that was one thing they told you, like, you could get sued, and the university can get sued. Everybody can get sued if you're serving here. They're going to sue everybody, and they're probably going to win. And if you want to start off your university career getting sued, just think about it. So I learned that in that sense. Yeah. So the liquor industry, well, it wasn't easy for them, but they did it. Although you don't need 6,000 hours to get trained in handling liquor either. So,
well, but we can make a shipper responsible.
Yeah.
To the point where they're not going to say, okay, what's your lowest rate? They're going to say, what's your safety rating?
Yeah. It's going to be tied into it, right?
It has to be, because what we're doing right now, the number one thing we have to accept, the way we're doing it right now isn't working.
Yeah.
It's not working at all. I do not want to go back to regulation that started in 1930s in the US, and I think 33, 35, actually the Motor Carrier Act came out.
Yeah.
It can stay there. I'm a capitalist, but we do have to make people responsible. And in no other industry do we allow that to happen. The general contractor on any job is always responsible for the performance and the safety of the subcontractors.
But you're seeing with like our companies that are hiring general contractors too, they're holding them to account as well too, because they have safety stats as well too, and it actually counts. They have to pay for it through insurance anyways, and also they have values. Like, people talk about these companies as capitalist companies, it's like all about money, 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 money. It's not always about that, because I work for a company that they really value environmental performance, safety, community, social responsibility, along with making a profit. So it's not like they don't want to make a profit, but it has to hit all these other benchmarks. And we audit the hell out of all of our programs to make sure they hit all those pillars to whatever extent it is. And it's always more stringent than what the regulations are. A lot of it with our company too was driven from regulations, right? Because we handle a product that freaks people out all the time, even though it's not as dangerous as people realize, especially at our end of it. But it still kind of freaks people out. There's a lot of that mindset comes from that sort of thing. But like, we take responsibility for that. There's no reason other companies can't do the same thing with their products. There's no reason at all to say you can't have some sort of safety threshold for delivering goods. Because I know that because we do that. We have a safety threshold. We have expectations, and the companies meet them.
Exactly. And that's something I learned in my years of trucking is you work for the general, you work for the big contractor.
Yeah.
And they have, like the company I work for, I'm not going to name their name, but I've told you them, and you've never heard of them because they haven't been in a fiery crash. They have 1,000 trucks across North America.
Yeah.
And I think we just had a safety review. We had 0.01 incidents per 100,000 man or 200,000 man hours worked or something. It's just ridiculously low.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
But it was pretty much non-existent.
Yeah.
But there's a different standard. And when the weather is bad, here's one thing that happens that people will relate to. When the weather is bad, I get a phone call, park your truck. Well, it doesn't look, park your truck. And if you don't park your truck, you're fired. And I know there's an enormous fuel company here in Saskatchewan that does that. And they have my respect for doing it. I have friends who work for them. And again, but they work for the general, right? They're working for the guy shipping the product. And so they're responsible all the way down the line. They're looking at it, they're, well, co-op. Can I say co-op? They have that policy.
Well, yeah, that's good to know. Co-op. Well, they're a pretty responsible company in that sense. And I know they have a pretty good record. And well, they try with the environmental side of things as well, too, as well as the safety. And that's the way it should be. Stop, park your freaking truck. It's okay. What's it worth?
I know a number of guys working there right now, quite a few friends working there, and they're some of the best drivers in the industry. And
when you get the order to park your truck, say you're 6 hours in, so you stop for 3 hours or whatever it is, 4 hours.
Or a day, whatever it takes, yeah.
Well, what if it's 4 hours? Can you start off again and do another 6 hours?
There's a whole bunch.
Does that count against the hours that you're logging, or what? Or how does that work?
You know what? That's a whole nother kettle of fish because you can split sleeper berth and you can do this and you can do that. And you don't want to get into truckers arguing logbooks. Trust me, you don't want to get into that. But regardless, what they did is they did the research and they said, for one truck hitting the ditch, not rolling over, not wrecking, just hitting the ditch.
Yeah.
That costs them so much on insurance and costs them so much trouble. Right. They're better off to shut down every single snowstorm, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of companies have done that because they're held responsible. They have a responsibility to that. But now when you take that away and you go to a third-party carrier and you're XYZ Corporation making widgets, and you don't have that responsibility. Well, you don't care. Well, why aren't my widgets there? My customer's complaining. Well, I'm not going to use you anymore. I'm going to use this other carrier, right? Yeah. And there's that constant battle. You also have companies, as soon as it gets slow, as soon as things slow down just the slightest little bit, they're calling up and they're demanding rate cuts. And they're not asking for 1 or 2%. They're asking for 20%. How do you cut 20% in an industry that has a 3 to 8% profit margin if things go well?
Yeah.
There's no 20% to cut.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. The market, it's got to come from the market, because that's what should drive it. Like, I know the carrier should be doing this kind of stuff, but the carrier should advertise, or they should market themselves as being the ultra safe type people. We only do safe type products, and I know it's kind of tough to do, but really it's got to be driven from the market side of things. Who's paying for the goods? Who needs the goods from here to there? That guy should be making sure that there's some sort of safety standards in there. And maybe there's too many goods, too many of these companies. But you see it on the environmental side. People want to have a more environmentally sustainable products, and people are paying for it, right? So I mentioned that right before, like free what do they call that? Free trade coffee, or not, whatever that's called. Fair trade coffee. That's a good example. Coffee is a bit of a luxury item. But it's a good example though, right? Because they say, well, look, our farmers are, at least that's what they claim, our farmers are taken care of. And we're not destroying acres and acres of rainforest, but we're trying to be sustainable, and we're actually validated by X rating agency. And people pay a premium for this kind of stuff. And companies like McDonald's, they buy that kind of coffee because they know it sells well. Say, look, the coffee here, and it's incorporated in the price, but you know that the coffee here, you're not like killing some poor kid somewhere, wherever it is. And really, from a safety point of view, in my mind, that's even a lot more important, because it's one thing to take care of these poor Colombian farmers, like, God bless their souls, but I'm driving on the road with these big trucks, so it could actually affect me by having unsafe drivers on the road. And I think that, right? There's some drivers who are just absolutely atrocious, and like you said, you hear about these kind of things. One thing you don't hear about are the near misses. How many near misses occur that aren't reported? And there's a lot of these kind of events that occur, and that to me should be a bigger selling feature than anything else. So why aren't companies like Walmart, who ship everything, or Amazon, pushing this? Well, those companies do have clout, right?
Walmart in the U.S. have their own division, right? They have their own trucking company, and they do run that way. Actually, the Walmart driver in the U.S., it's a hard company to get on, and they make, I believe it's around $100,000 a year U.S. driving truck for Walmart. But you got to have I could probably get on with there. Actually, I could if I lived in the U.S. You got to have a clean record. You got to have a long-standing record of operating safely. I'm boasting that I could get on there. They probably look at me and say, "Get out of here." But anyways, but they aspire to that company, right?
Yeah.
They keep their record clean because they want to get on with the company that's going to pay them well and treat them well. And Walmart is a prime example. Now they contract it out here in Canada. I don't think they have a lot of incidents. I do believe they hold their carrier accountable, and there are companies that do it. But not all. And you can start another company, like if I have a company and I get a really bad safety rating and you and I are friends and I say, okay, Rob, well, you go start a company. Well, now we switch everything over to you and all the trucks are running under you now. Same guys, same everything, but we've got cheaper insurance. So
but making it a trade though, and then what happens is the record follows the driver around. That's the trick. So it falls around, and then the company has to be able to validate that, and then also offer, a similar type of package in their own company. That's the benefit of having it as a trade. So yeah, you sell everything off, start a new company with a silent part or something like that. The driver still has to have to have that thing, and it follows them around, and that's what you're arguing for, right?
Your record follows you now with an abstract. That's been for a lot of years.
No, not just a record, but a safety rating. Like even more. Does that follow you around too, or what?
Yeah, it does. But what I'm more looking at is you won't be given the keys after 3 weeks and sent out with a Super Bee to go grab a load of peat moss out of Carrot River. Okay? You're not going to be hauling steel through BC. You're not going to be doing a job you're not qualified for. In order for you to get to the point, and if DOT pulls you over and you're working for XYZ trucking company or ABC trucking company, and they look and say, okay, well, look, you don't have the hours, you don't have the qualifications. Why are you out here by yourself? Where's your trainer? Where's your this? Where's your that?
Yeah.
And now the company who put you out there is going to be in a world of hurt, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking at, is to get people through that process, and also so people can enter the industry. You can't get in. If a person off the street, and I know guys, actually cousins of mine, who have just given up. They went and got their license and they cannot get into the industry. So, because nobody will take that risk on them.
Yeah.
Right? Unless it's somebody really shady and they don't want to work for those guys.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It goes back to, again, that whole humble Bronco thing just freaks me out. That driver there, and I know everyone vilified him, and he fucked up. But I felt sorry for that guy. Felt really sorry for him because he's put into a situation where he was unprepared for, and he was told that you're ready to go, and he went and did it. Because I don't think he was like, from what I can tell, he wasn't acting like he wasn't trying to deceive anybody. He was just, like I said, some guy. They got this worker for a shady company, as far as I can tell. They put him on the road, and he was unable. He's like, no, he's unqualified to be on the road driving like that. And
his license was exactly the same. You see the great big heavy haul loads going up to Fort McMurray. Got 100 axles under the trailer, 20 axles, and
yeah,
the same driver's license. He had the same driver's license as a guy hauling fuel, a guy hauling jet fuel.
Yeah,
it's all the same license.
Yeah,
and that's going to stop. I get a lot of resistance. People say, well, what are we going to do about this? And what are we going to do about that? And do I have it exactly laid out? No, I'm driving truck all day, right? But I also know what we're doing isn't working.
You got to make noise. You don't have to have all the solutions, but you got to get start somewhere, and you don't know where it's going to go.
Well, in every other industry, what have we done? Now, going back to construction, before I got into driving truck, I worked construction. And I was working at and actually I can talk about this because it's public record. I was working at the world's largest single line craft mill in the world being built up at Athabasca. A fellow fell and died. And when I went for my orientation there, they're talking about the grim statistic where every 1,000,000 man hours somebody dies. And yeah, we're getting close to 1,000,000 hours and we haven't had a death yet. And, you know, we kind of, and it's like, are you serious? Another fellow fell and died. And OH&S and Alberta Works Comp shut the site down. And they told the owners of the pulp mill, they said, you need a safety program where nobody's going to get hurt. And they said, but we got $1 billion in here. And they said, well, I guess you better work on it. And they did. And they developed one. And everything was way behind. Within 4 months, they'd made up all the lost time. And you know what? The industry has found now is things are way safer, far safer and more productive. 30 years ago, I don't know if you're old enough, but I'm old enough. If you went to work on the rigs back in the 70s or 80s, people were losing their hands, they were losing their arms, they were dying.
Lots of guys without toes or fingers, hey? Like lots of them. You know.
Doesn't happen today, does it? Because safety came in.
Yeah.
You know, I had thought, I love cars, as you can probably tell from the background. And I had thought of being a body man at one time. And the reason I never went into it is because I didn't want to work around those chemicals and be exposed. Because 30 years ago, if you'd asked for a mask, they'd have called you a suck.
Yeah.
Right? If you didn't have a mask, they'll show you the door. Because the whole attitude to safety has changed.
Yeah.
That has not happened with trucking. It has not.
Yeah.
Because we're not pushing that. We're not making people responsible for it.
My cousin, I
guess I ramble. I get on this. I'm pretty.
No, that's fine. I have a cousin. He's actually a safety. I don't know what his title is. He's a safety guy though. He's pretty good. He kind of started that just a few years ago, and I remember he's talking about like most of the big companies now, like for construction and projects, they have safety programs are pretty well developed, developing or developed for all of them. But where the gap is from the small little companies, right? And a big one, huge one, is farming, which is a major industry. And you talk about like rig guys with like missing fingers. Like I know guys, their neighbor had a hook, you know, on his hand, and like lots, you know, those guys with prosthetic feet and stuff like that. My nephew hurt his foot really bad in a farm rig just a few years ago, and it was just a stupid little accident, and lost half of his foot. Poor kid, and it happens just like that, right? And they're actually one of the better farms in terms of like being safety and stuff like that. And that's how these accidents still can kind of occur. And and like farming should, like, you know, it's not like it was when I was a kid, even though it was dangerous enough when I was a kid. You don't see family farms anymore. Like they're all small little industries, corporations, right? Families may own corporations, but they're a lot bigger than they ever were, a lot bigger than my dad. That's why I didn't farm, right? Because just you have to have a certain level of activity and capital to be able to farm. And plus, I have allergies, how the yin yang.
My
tired of going into grain bins. But anyways, like I had some conversations with my cousin too, and like you got to get these safety programs beefed up in all the small businesses as well too. And what you're talking about trucking again, the big firms, you're saying a lot of them are developing safety programs, but the smaller firms aren't developing the safety programs.
And now how do you compete? You have all this extra expense. How do you compete with the guy who comes in and just slashes your rate?
Well,
because your
not everyone,
going
but
to say, oh,
some firms are doing it apparently.
In farming or in trucking?
Trucking. I'm talking about trucking at this point.
They're trying. They
Yeah.
are. But you're still up against it. And if you talk to the guys, they lose loads all the time, and they're put under the gun. You know.
So it's got to be a mass shift, transition towards that sort of culture that hasn't happened yet.
We're all, as one friend of mine points out quite a bit, he says, well, you're going to notice now that I mention it, there's spaces in the grocery shelves that you probably don't notice, particularly in the produce aisle. It's quite as acute here in Saskatchewan, but in Ontario, it's almost impossible to get to have a full supply of fresh produce because there's not enough people to haul it.
Oh yeah,
and it's going to be a premium. So, I mean, and those things do come and go, but right now it's getting quite strong. I know right now to hire a driver, you can't hire a driver.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah,
it's pretty much impossible because there's nobody coming in, and to get somebody experienced, if you can actually get through insurance, it's getting rougher all the time. So we have that end also. We're not bringing people into the industry, right?
Yeah,
and that's going to cost us too. But next time you go to the grocery store, you'll notice it.
I'm never going to go to a grocery store again.
There you go.
I go to the co-op. I run over to the co-op.
Liquor store, Rob. It could hit the liquor store. Then we all have trouble.
I do go to that co-op on 33rd. I kind of pop in there too. It's a little nice. They got a lot of good meat products there. Actually, pretty good selection. Sausage. That's usually what I do there. So grab some of that. Then I go around over the Blairmore to the liquor store. Every time they actually increase the COVID restrictions, I run to the liquor store and grab another bottle. I need another drink. Well, that's a pretty cool rant there. I think that's an important message that you're passing on for people too. So you're doing it via little rants, which that's important. What other kind of stuff is going on that you see people speaking up, or how are they speaking up about this?
Well, my friend Gord gets quite into it. One thing he said, Gord did a podcast, or actually an interview on a podcast a while ago, and he made the point. He said things you see in every other industry, like efficiency. What is it? Lean, the program that.
Yeah, lean.
Yeah. It never comes into trucking.
Yeah.
Anything like that is never implemented. Now there might be somebody says, "Oh well, I know a company in BC." Yeah, there might be the odd one, but they probably didn't follow through on it.
Yeah.
Everything is to get cheap labor. They always want a cheaper rate, and actually truck drivers are making less today than they were 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And they see that as a success for some reason, So, and we're paying the price. I can sit here and tell you that, oh, well, it's terrible. Pick up the newspaper. And unfortunately, it's going to be happening all summer again, and it's not going to stop.
Yeah.
I warn my wife and kids to watch out for truck drivers because I know what's happening, and they scare the shit out of me, pardon my language, but they do.
Out of my language.
So it's not getting better. And we're not, there's got to be a change made. And if somebody else has a different idea, said, well, let's do it this way, I'm all for it. I really am. But right now, what are we doing?
But the idea, though, what we need to do is get people talking about it more. So that's what I'm wondering. Do you have a
Solutions.
plan to get people talking about it more?
Well, I'm coming on this, doing interviews, getting people,
Yeah.
you know, every person you read, right? Writing letters. Kim Wiley did an incredible video. Kim being from Humboldt, he really represented, and he really laid out that was probably one of the best videos you could put out there. And it came from the heart, and he laid out what it took to become a truck driver. Well, he didn't say a trade specifically. He laid out what it took to make money and what it took to be success.
Yeah.
And nobody hates. Is it Jakarik Singh Sidhu? Jakarik?
Sidhu, yeah, that's his name.
Sorry.
Sidhu, yeah, the driver from the.
I like you. I don't fault him. The man came to this country, wanted to make a living, wanted to make a good living.
Yeah.
He was told to get into trucking. He was put into trucking because, quite honestly, there is a push to get cheap labor. It's really not much different than what we did to the Chinese over 100 years ago, is to get cheap labor. We brought in immigrants to build a railroad, and now we have them coming in to do trucking, and we're abusing them the same way. There, I said it. And that's exactly the way I feel about it.
Yeah.
From his character, and I don't want to get into it, whether he should stay in the country or not. That's
a legal decision, at this point. And yeah,
the man is absent of malice. He did not mean to do what he did, and
I can't see it.
Showing remorse. He wanted to make a decent living, and I really wish he could have come into this industry and made a decent living. And I would like to see more people do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a shame. A stupid little tragedy like that. And
well, it's not stupid little, but yeah.
It's stupid little because it was just the decisions that are made way above the chain, and nobody was doing anything wrong in terms of like the people involved in the accident. Nobody was actually doing anything wrong by their standards, and they're all behaving appropriately. There was no reason for it to happen. It was a lucky hit, and it was just awful. And 16 people died. It's like, what the fuck? Yeah. And it feels so bad for that guy. It feels so bad for him.
And
and the malice out there for that guy is just awful. I like how Scott and Lori came out. Well, Lori said it on my podcast, but they said it the other day in the news too about this guy's deportation here. Like, we forgive him. And they're right to forgive him because they're good people.
And if another family doesn't forgive him, they have a right to do that too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of anger.
Part I stay out of it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel for him because you know what, Rob? It could have been me.
Yeah.
I started out my first year. If you look at the statistics, the first year is the worst year for any driver. That's the most dangerous year. That's when you're most likely to have the big wreck. I believe it's 44% of all accidents that are the truck driver's fault in the U.S. This is from my buddy Gord, the hippie, are drivers who have been on the road for a year or less. And then
that makes sense, eh? I wonder how old they are as well too, because again, the whole thing about your brain not developing, especially among men, that's real. The actuarial tables are pretty clear on that. Till you hit 25. 25 on, it's actually quite consistent. Up to 25, it's like, really, people shouldn't have driver's license. Men shouldn't have driver's license until they turn 25. Women around 20 and 21.
Virginia Tech, the U.S. studies this far more than we do.
Yeah.
And Virginia Tech did a study, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. Anyways, and actually what they found out was the opposite of that.
Really?
The older you are in that first year of driving, like if you start driving at 50, and a lot of people, we used to get a lot of that. We used to get a lot of RCMP guys to work with. We get retired RCMP coming into the industry. I was actually, when I was talking about...
Oh, you're talking about like big truck driving. Okay, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Correct. They would come into driving truck and they'd all say the same thing. They'd say, I'd be at the side of an accident and I'd be dealing with a drunk driver and a screaming wife and all this carnage. And I'd see a truck go by. I thought, how nice it'd be to get in a truck and just go for it. I must have had a dozen cops tell me that. They dreamed of getting in the truck and just to keep driving. And then they'd become truck drivers, right?
But we would do a lot of that. but the studies are the later you actually start driving truck,
the
but
more likely you are to have an accident in your first year. Yep.
so it doesn't matter.
I didn't believe that.
So that's a bigger factor than
I
the
thought
actual age of them. It's more the experience of the driver. It might even be worse when you go, because you know what, you don't know, because you develop your habits as a driver, as an automobile driver, and then if you start a little later on, like it's a different thing than if you're kind of young too. You know what I mean? Like in terms of the feel of the road and stuff like that. You haven't developed your bad habits.
I didn't put that, you know, I never put that much thought into it, but you're probably right. I actually wrote it down because, yeah, that does sense, right?
It's a hypothesis.
You're right. Actually, a lot of companies, larger companies, well, it's a good one because I do know some companies don't want you to have a lot of experience. Well, actually, one time they would prefer the guy with 3 years.
Yeah.
The way they want you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, because they don't want you to have bad habits and they want to train
older guy.
Yeah, I get that. Well, it's like learning to play the guitar. Like I kind of learned how to play guitar poorly because I just learned on my own. I play it the way I play it, and it's fine. But I don't know if I can go back and learn to play like a kid would learn. I bet you my kid picks it up right now. He's probably 2 years is probably better than I am because he doesn't know how to play. He could just take the lessons, and start playing, and I bet you he can just like play scales and do little licks. I can't do any of that stuff, and I won't. Old dog, man. I'm an old dog.
I have no musical ability at all.
Really?
You know, it amazes me. If you give me a guitar, I won't make any money with it. I could maybe sell it and get, like, I'm not good enough to play like that guy outside the liquor store, you know, trying to get money to buy another case of beer.
I love those guys.
I'm not that good, right? Yeah, I do too. I always but true. I'm not that good. I would sell the guitar and I'd probably sell it at a loss. You take that same guitar, you give it to another guy, and he's Bruce Springsteen and he's making $1 billion, right? So you got to respect everybody for what they do, right?
Yeah. So you have a few goals that you have in mind, or like daily targets you're trying to hit. You texted me them earlier on.
Yeah, well, every day.
Yeah.
That's kind of my my safety tip. You know what? I love this job. I was only going to do it for a year. My mom talked me. I was unemployed. I was like 25. I got laid off from construction, and I'm thinking, well, I'm going to lay around all summer and have a good time on Pogie. And my mom said, why don't you go get your class 1? She said, your Uncle Jim could drive a truck, and he always had a job. So I did. And I thought, I'll do it for a year. It's an adventure. That was 28 years ago.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with it. And I mean, everybody says the people you meet. That is true. I love being out. I love being myself. It's given me a great life. I love the job.
Yeah.
Right. I love doing it well. I love always being challenged. I love being in a group of guys. You know, you get cocky about doing your job and you're thinking you're doing a great job. And then you meet somebody, oh shit, he's doing it better than I am. So you got to up your game. And I love working with those guys that make you up your game.
Yeah.
I love honing the craft. And one of the things I do, and I don't know, maybe it's stupid, but I have fun doing this, and I've done it for a lot of years, is it's my rule, it's my game, right? It's both. Every day I have to have 3 people give me a courtesy wave, an acknowledgement that I've been courteous to them. Stopping for a pedestrian that wants to cross in a crosswalk, wave right now.
Yeah.
Lots of days I'll get 20 or 30 waves. Slowing down just that little extra bit when you're going past the paving crew.
Mm-hmm.
And they're standing outside of the road. Yeah, I know you can go by at 60. Go by at 20 or 30.
Yeah.
And you'll get a whole bunch of waves, because as they'll tell you, when you're going by at 60, you have a truck go by at 60 miles an hour past your desk. See how much you like it.
Yeah. It's
little things like that. Letting people in. And you know what? It becomes habit forming, and you start enjoying it, and it fights fatigue. It's just something I do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did want to pass that on.
That's a good tip. That's a good tip for anybody. You don't have to drive a truck to take care of
No,
those
you
kind of
don't.
things as well too. I'm a bad driver. I'm not a good driver. People say that 85% of people are above average. Drivers. That's what they say. I'm not. I'm one of those 50%. Although I recognize it, I'm trying to do better, and I got to learn not to
Yeah.
be in a rush. I'm always in a rush. My anxiety is always building up or something. And so that's a good tip. And maybe I could try doing that, even though I'm not driving a big truck. I can imagine myself being a little more courteous out there, maybe getting the odd wave. Maybe I'll start my target as one a day if I'm out driving around. Start from there.
Oh, go for 3. If you can't get 3, just pack it in.
Well, I'm
You're a
driving.
jackass.
I'm driving to the gym,
I can
and then I drive home.
get here to make her hard.
You get paid to drive.
It is not
Come
hard,
on.
right? I get your kids involved too, because you know what?
Yeah.
You can't do punch bug anymore, right? There's no more Volkswagen. They're gone. So
Yeah. You can help out with that. They're in their own little world, but I think that's a good idea. And making a game out of your driving, out of your journey in the automobile is not a bad idea. And it makes you more alert, makes you more conscientious, and keeps you alert. And I've seen videos too of like truck drivers driving near misses and stuff like that. I saw a video actually through work. They sent it on to me, and I had a look at it, and it was crazy. This car on Main Highway in Ontario, and the car just veered right at the truck, just like like this, I guess, like that. And it was like, holy Christ. And it's broad daylight, nice, bright day, 10 in the morning or something like that. There's no reason at all to expect that. And it occurred. And the driver was, because he was paying attention, he moved over. That person would have been dead had the driver not been paying attention. Would have been a head-on collision. And the driver instead, he was ready to go, just moved over, and it did a little side swipe, and that was it. No, barely any damage to the trailer. The car was in bad shape, but the people walked out of there because the driver did his job. He was paying attention. I was like, boy, that's good, because I don't know if I had paid attention.
Safety training saved my life. I had an accident a few years ago. I don't want to get into that because I get teary-eyed when I talk about it. But the one course you take is the PDIC, Professional Driver Improvement course. I think it's like $35 if you want to take it online. Oh. And one of the things they tell you, it's actually quite good, is that as a truck driver, it's not just to not be at fault, but could you have prevented it? Right. And the one example, they do a bunch of different things, and it really hit home with me. I'll always remember it. And this is what good companies do, is you don't get in their truck until you've done these courses and you've gone through this. This is one of the things they invest in. But here's an example. If you're going down a street or US Highway 2, and you're going through Great Falls, Montana, which you do, and there's a whole bunch of bars along that street when you come into Falls, okay? You slow down. If you're coming in at, say the speed limit's 30 miles an hour, and you're coming in on a Friday night at 10 o'clock, assume everybody on that road's drunk. Don't think they're going to stop at that stop sign, okay? Because they're probably not, because they've been drinking. So it's up to you as a professional driver to compensate for them being idiots.
It's not fair. And you do it, right?
After 9 or 10 o'clock at night, pretty much, I'd say half the vehicles on the road are drunk, and
they've had a drink.
Will tell you that
for sure. Yeah, at
What's
least.
That?
Yeah. They've had a drink. They've had a drink or two at least.
Yeah. So you allow for that.
Yeah.
So that is just one of the things you learn, and I've never taken a course or been to a safety meeting where I didn't at least get one thing out of it. And I'm very appreciative of that, So there's an investment to be made, and we got to make everybody toe the line.
Well, great.
Everybody responsible for it.
Well, I hope anybody out there is listening to this sort of thing here and try to pass it on to people if you have a chance to do so, to pass on the message of we got to make the drivers on this road safer. And a good way to do that, one way to do that is to develop a professional driver trade. And that's only going to happen if people start talking about it and making pressure on the industry to make changes. It's the only way to do it. You got to start talking about it. You got to start somewhere. So I'm glad you're doing this.
No. And the basis for any problem solving is taking what you know and applying. Well, the basis for any problem solving is to take what you know and apply it to what you don't know. Well, we know making everybody responsible like we do. I mean, we don't let XYZ Widget Corporation use lead paint, do we? No.
Yeah, I hate that damn corporation. They're awful.
Yeah, I know. XYZ is a terrible corporation.
Yeah.
But we don't let them use lead paint. We don't let them use substandard product. Why would we let them use substandard shipping? Why do we let them cheap out on that? What do we do?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
so when the product was shipped here, was it done safely? Stuff that we should be asking or asking people as a consumer, because at the end of the day, the consumer actually drives a lot more power than you realize. So,
and you make everybody responsible, because I don't want another family broken. I really don't. Everybody in the industry feels that, like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, for sure. Well, that's good, Trent. Anyway, I think that's awesome. That's what I want to hear. Send me those links. So we'll put it into the description here too, and I'll maybe see if I can put them onto the YouTube channel for the video rants that you have, and that video of that fellow out in Humboldt as well too. I think I've seen that, but I want to put it on here again. I want to see that again. That video that you were talking about. So find the link for that and send it to me.
Great guy, Kim. Great guy. Very professional.
Yeah. Okay. You want to talk about anything else, or are you done?
My wife and I are getting ready to head up that horrible lake tomorrow that nobody else should go to. I don't know why we're there. It's like algae all the time, you know.
Oh God, it's just industrial plant on the west side is terrible. Going ice fishing, or what are you doing?
Well, what's that?
You going ice fishing, or what are you doing?
Pardon me. You know what? I think I'm just going to hang out by the fire and take the dog for walks and chill out. So enjoy the day.
Well,
all right.
Jeff, you enjoy it. You earned it. So anyways, thanks, man. And we'll be in touch. I'm going to stop.
Will do. And if anybody's wondering, that's a 67 Cougar XR7 back there.
Oh,
yeah, I know you don't care. I know you don't. Yeah, but there's people listening right now who do care.
I know nothing about old cars, but I do care. Don't think I don't.
Well, when I get it running, I'll take you for a ride. I might even let you drive it. So.
Let's go up to our studio.
Oh, so